Hello my friends, it's Ranger Russ. Starting a little early because I spotted these egrets out in the marsh. Very bright today, so I'm having a hard time seeing the camera. Hopefully you can see right there. There are two egrets. They both look like they are great egrets. Very hard to tell from this distance. If the one on the left is smaller, which it might be, that could be a snowy egret. The one on the right is definitely a great egret. You can see it stretching its neck out. That's its hunting posture, stalking through the marsh, trying to capture something. Could be a crab. The tide is up right now in the marsh, so they could be grabbing fish, snails, anything creeping around out in the marsh. They will grab mice if they can find them. Oh, look at right between the two, closer to us, there is a glossy ibis just coming up out of the grasses there. That one's heading to the left. So three of the main birds. I really think now that the one on the left there is a snowy egret. They're smaller, they have a black bill and black legs with bright yellow feet. The great or common egret, which is the larger one there, that's going to have a yellowy colored beak and slightly yellowy legs. Then the glossy ibis is iridescent. From this distance they look black, but they're iridescent red around their head and green on their back. So very beautiful bird. Look at that great egret stretching its neck out. Oh, I think it just may have spotted something moving. Heron have a similar look. They look very similar to the egrets, but they have a very different hunting style. The heron are usually going to wait, and they're just ambush. They just wait for something. They move really slowly. The egrets are more stalkers. They're going to move around and hunt for their prey a little bit more than the heron do. All right. So it looks like we've got a few people in already. I want to say hello, and I hope that you continue to watch these programs. I also would like it if you have questions, comments. If you would also put up where you're from, you can post them at any time. It's really bright today. I'm having a hard time seeing the screen, but I will try and answer the questions as I go. Today's program, we're going to be walking along the Moraine Trail, and I was starting out here on our Pebble Beach, or many people are now calling it Shell Beach because it's got so many shells built up on it. But we're going to be going out onto the Moraine Trail. Now, I did a Moraine Trail program in the past. If you go to megspointnaturecenter.org or the Megs Point Nature Center YouTube channel, you can view that program. In this program, we're going to be going out on the second part of the Moraine Trail. And before we get to the Moraine Trail, let's take a look at some of the things. Here we have some rugosa rose or beech rose. I did talk about this in the Dune program, but you can see the rose hip. The flowers have gone by. The rose hips are starting to get bigger. Those are going to ripen into a nice reddish orange color. And in a later program, you'll probably see me take a taste of one. Again, this is an invasive species. Up there you can see the red berries. That's Asian honeysuckle, another invasive species. So, and we're going to go over here. Now we've got this sort of maze diagram. It's really just a spiral made in stones out here on the beach. I'm going to ask people not to add to this by taking stones off of our rocky beach. It does change the habitat the more stones are removed from it. Here we've got some beach pea. Let's see if I can see any peas. The flowers have all gone by, and I think the peas have probably gone by as well. But That's our beach pea. Here's our stone circles or maze. This is actually in a book featuring stone spirals or mazes. Don't remember the name of it. I'll try and put that book up if I think of it. All right. So this is still part of this is why it's called Shell Beach. All of these slipper shells that have washed up over the years. Each year, especially in the winter, we get a lot more of them added to the beach. It doesn't mean that we're getting a massive die-off of slipper snails, and we do not transport these in. I have heard people question whether these shells were brought in intentionally. They are not. They wash up on their own. But here's an important thing to keep in mind when you're out and about. If you come across any fishing line, we appreciate it if you pick it up and dispose of it properly. And we have these little fishing line dispensers around the park. A great way to help keep the environment clean. Fishing line can be pretty hazardous to especially birds, but other wildlife. Birds may try and build their nests out of it, and it's not like string. It lasts a very long time. The monofilament line can last for years. So here we've got some natives, finally some native plants. We've got a lot of poison ivy, which we might see out on the trail. You want to always watch out for poison ivy when you're here at Hammonasset. And we've got some Carolina rose. This is a rose. The last time I did the Cedar Island trail, I did not remember the name of the Carolina. Carolina is a little bit different than the rugosa, and it is in flower right now, where the rugosa or the beech rose is coming out of flower, going into the rose hips about now. So this is the beginning of our Moraine Trail. I'm going to try and point the camera away if we come across any people. So if you're wondering why suddenly the camera turns, that would be why. So this is the reason it's called the Moraine Trail. All of these rocks were left here by a glacier years ago, and that's how a moraine is formed. If the glacier stays in one place and drops piles of rocks in one location, that's how you get a moraine. Now I'm noticing something that's new since the last time I've been out on this trail. Here's another little circle of stones. Again, these are not the best for our environment, for our habitat. We want to keep the habitat natural. If the stones are in a cluster like this, a natural group, this is a great habitat. This is a great place for animals to hide. When you bring the stones and put them in single lines and spread them out, this is not a great habitat for our animals. So this actually can become harmful if they've got to move from one circle to the other in search of food. They are exposing themselves unnecessarily to predators. So we don't really like to see these designs created as far as a habitat goes. Now back here is something, years ago we had some really nice big tide pools here in the park, right in this location. Storms washed them away, so when I first started here we had none. And then over the years they've begun to develop again, and you can see the shells have sort of dammed it up and created another tide pool. This takes a really high tide to reach this from the beach side, so it may be able to get some water from the marsh side. But this is the beginning of another tide pool. Really cool. I see a lot of fish, mostly killies. Actually, I'm seeing a few sheep's head minnows in there as well. So the sheep's head minnows are the shorter, wider ones. Not seeing a whole lot else. If this were a really active tide pool, if every tide you got a fresh amount of water and then it drained out afterward, this would have a lot of variety. it would be a much healthier environment and actually be able to be called a tide pool. Because this looks like it's only getting tides, extreme highs, it gets an exchange. I would say this is more like a salt pan out in a salt marsh than a tide pool. It's still a neat place to look for critters though. I'm going to take a look. Do we have any questions? Labyrinth, that's the word that I was looking for. Yes, there's a book on labyrinths, and that larger one is in the book on labyrinths. All right, let's continue on back to the trail. Got some nice marsh grasses growing in here. Some marsh alder, probably some high tide bush. Again, because this trail is made up of rocks left by the moraine, it is a very rocky trail. So you want to take into consideration the type of trail before you start hiking it. So this is typical of the terrain that you're going to encounter on this trail. So you want to watch out for that. Some nice rocks. I like climbing over the rocks as I hike. Some people may not, or may not be able to do it. So we have other trails at Hammonasset that are much nicer. If you remember the Cedar Island Trail. Here's something cool. I will talk about this in the future, definitely, but this is Yarrow. Looks like there's a little bee on there. Looks like, or maybe a hornet. I can't tell. It's a very small one. It's got the fern-like leaves, but we'll talk about that. That's a medicinal plant. And when I do my program on ethnobotany, look out for that program coming up. Sounds complicated, it's really not. I like to simplify things. So let's see what else we can find along here. Here's some of the honeysuckle in bloom. We saw the berries, the red berries back there. There's the honeysuckle. Saw a little of this out on the Cedar Island Trail, but this trail has a few more invasives. There are some really spectacular views as you walk along the Moraine Trail. Nice log there. The driftwood logs wash up. You get some lots of different colors and shapes of the rock because they come from different places. So as you're walking along the trail, this is also a great place to find, especially in the winter, to find sea ducks. Sometimes they come right up along this part of our shore looking for food. Look at how cool this is. It's all surrounding us. And here's something else to look at. I also smell there's something dead, probably out in the water. So here we have some tent caterpillars. Many people think these are gypsy moths. The gypsy moths are in the same family, but these are not gypsy moths. These are tent caterpillars. You can see them twitching in there. These guys do some damage, like the gypsy moths, but not as much. Gypsy moths eat all the leaves. They strip trees down to nothing. So this is pretty cool. They live inside that tent through a few in insects when they morph, getting larger and larger. Oh, and there's a predatory wasp. It looks like it's looking for some food. Look at that. So that looks like a hunter wasp. Probably going to try and grab one of the caterpillars, carry it off. And I believe this type of wasp lays its egg in the caterpillar, that stuns the caterpillar, lays its egg in it, and then buries it up. So that's pretty cool. Someone's asking what the caterpillars turn into. For the tent caterpillar, it's a type of a moth. So that's really cool. is really trying to get through that web. It's not being very successful though. That caterpillar that's twitching a lot right there is really tempting this little guy. Actually, you know what it's doing? It's stinging right through the tent. I wonder if it's laying its eggs through the tent. That's pretty neat. So again, these berries, these are honeysuckle, Asian honeysuckle. I'm so curious about this. I don't want to leave this wasp. I want to see what's happening here. Yeah, I think it's looking for caterpillars that are close enough to the surface, and then it's either stinging them, trying to stun them through it, or it's laying its eggs right through the web for the eggs to develop inside. All right, we should probably move on. Look at this. This is such a neat trail. This part of the trail looks pretty nice. Not a lot of rocks, but there's a few rocks again. I really want people to be cautious when they are choosing a trail to go out onto. The DEP, the Department of Energy, Environment and Environmental Protection, have some great website information about trails, trail etiquette. I will do a program coming up on trail etiquette, but you should check out the CTDEP Instagram post about getting out into parks and being smart and safe about it. They've got some great information on there. And again, this is a great place in the wintertime to see shorebirds. Look back, that's where we came from back there. So I've mentioned to people many times that every view of Hammonasset is a photo opportunity. When you look back at that, you can't help but think that would be such a cool painting or a photo. I'm gonna try and zoom in. My hand's a little shaky, but we'll see what we can do here. How cool is that? Somebody should be out here with their paints, painting this view. The Great Backyard Pursuit this year, instead of the Great Park Pursuit, we did the Great Backyard Pursuit. And one of the things was finding art in nature. And I have an unfair advantage here at Hammonasset because here's another. How about that for a photo or a painting? Look at the cloud in the back there. I think that would be a cumulus nimbus, I believe. Just a beautiful cloud formation. We are going to be getting some rain this afternoon. I was actually planning an inside program for today, but the rain kept getting pushed later in the day, and I thought, well, let's take advantage of it and get outside. So I hope you're all enjoying being outside, because I think this is a beautiful place to go for a quiet walk. Quiet until I get there anyway, because I don't stop talking. So here we've got another invasive tree of heaven. You will see this all along the roadsides in Connecticut. It gets a big cluster of orange berries, orange flowers. I think the orange flowers turn into orange berries, but beautiful orange. And that's why it was planted. It's a nice looking, fast growing tree. Unfortunately, too fast growing, and becomes an invasive in Connecticut, and we no longer plant it, but it's too late. They're everywhere. And back there you can see some of the Carolina rose, and there's a big old bumblebee getting some nectar back there, getting some pollen. Very cool. And here we have another portion. So the shells have built up here a little bit as well, creating another sort of shell beach here. You can see some people have built some cairns out on the rocks. Cairns. I always pronounce that word wrong. I'm going to step off the trail right here. We've got a nice little cedar tree. This is something we expect to see growing out on this part of the trail more and more as time goes on. We will get a little cedar grove eventually. I see someone was asking if the honeysuckle is fragrant. It is not the most fragrant flower that we have here at the park. There's another invasive, the autumn olive. Much sweeter, much stronger smell. But if I find another honeysuckle, I'll show you. You can, most of you have probably done it in the past, but you can suck the nectar out of it. It's very sweet. So here we're going to look. These are some tree of heaven back here. Again, not the tree that we want to have here. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see some cedars growing out there instead of the tree of heaven. Got some raspberries or blackberries here. I'm gonna have to come back here later in the summer. Not seeing any flowers, but we might get some berries out here. And then we've got a couple of old. All right, look at how cool is this? There's another photo op right there. There's some old gnarly cherry trees. Now notice, look at these trees. The shore is to the up. There's a rabbit running down the trail, being chased by a mink. Do you guys see that? There goes the mink. So the rabbit was running down the trail, and then the mink was chasing after it. The mink saw me and ducked into the bushes, and the rabbit kept coming. I hope you guys got to see that. That was so awesome. That was so cool. We have mink, lots of mink. This is a great place for mink, perfect habitat. They love going through the rocks looking for food. They swim. I want to see some thumbs up if you guys got to see the mink and the rabbit, because that was really awesome. All right. So that was a teachable moment right there. If you guys got to see it, I hope you did. Now we're going to look again at this tree. Let's get back to where I was. These trees, if the shore, the ocean, Long Island Sound is off to the right, the wind is constantly blowing and pushing the trees, and their growth just grows away from the prevailing winds. That's why you get this great big lean to these trees. These are slower growing trees. The tree of heaven will do it a little bit as well, but they grow a little faster, so they can grow more in the summer and won't get that big lean that these trees get. But that is so cool. All right, and back in that tree of heaven in the back there, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little tree swallow sitting there. We have tree swallow nesting boxes here, so he's sitting. Oh, there's another one flying over him. There's a few flying around over here. Tree swallows. In the fall, I will definitely do a program on the tree swallow murmurations. That'll be fun. Won't get into that too much now though. All right. So I didn't see too many thumbs up, so I think you guys didn't get to see the mink, but you should go back and watch that section again after I'm done. That was absolutely amazing. Oh, willet. I don't know if you guys could hear that. A willet just flew by. It was chirping a bit. So this is pretty lucky. There are not a lot of people out on the trail today. There were a lot of people back on the beach. It was a little tough to begin. Oh, cool. Look. This is around where the mink went off into the trail and hid. But this is mullein. Mullein, if you're familiar with lamb's ear, mullein has a similar leaf. It's really soft. Gets these yellow flowers. This stalk can grow 6 or 7 feet tall. And then when it dies and it dries out, this stem is excellent for starting fires. When this is all dried out, again, my ethnobotany program, we're going to have to talk about mullein. We can start a fire cautiously. And there's more of the rocky shore. Look at the clouds out over Long Island. So those clouds there are probably either over Long Island or the other side of Long Island. So Long Island, the farthest Long Island is from Connecticut, I think, is 21 miles. And here, I think we're about 17 miles from Long Island. It's a little more open. There's a willet flying by. It's behind me, so I can't show you guys that one. Oh, but I can show you. If you look over there, there's the Cedar Island Trail. No, not up. I want to go down here. There's the Cedar Island Trail over there. That ends in that nice platform. All right. Oh, I missed some comments here. Let's see. Is the tree of heaven related to poison sumac? Great question, because they do look similar, don't they? The leaves are similar, but not related at all. So good question, though. Beautiful, my family. Love to hike there. See if we have any other. Hey, Rob's watching. Hello, Rob. Does salt water in the soil impact the tree's development? Great question. And yes, it can. If there's too much salt, these trees are not going to be able to grow. So cedars can tolerate a little bit of salt, but again, too much of it and they're going to die off. So as sea level rises and it reaches further in, you're going to start to see little groves of cedar trees actually, they die off because they're just getting too much salt. And I've got a horsefly that's just bitten me twice. A little sneaky guy. So you guys are hearing the chirping sound, and the bird is in the tree right here, but I can't see it. Oh, there it goes. This deer fly is getting me a lot. So it's a sparrow that's singing, and I don't know my sparrows very well, but we'll see if we can pan over. It's on that shrub right there. Probably is a song sparrow. Again, I can hardly see it. And I am not good at birding by ear. I really admire people that can bird by ear. There are a few birds I can pick out, but they all start to sound the same to me. All right, so let's keep going and see what we've got around the corner here. There's a boat going by, a cormorant. I don't know if you can see that flying low on the side there. And a little motorboat. Here's a nice cedar. The salt in the soil is one thing. Salt in the air is something else. So some of the trees can tolerate the salt in the air. The cedar can tolerate that. Others have a harder time with that salt air and won't be able to survive. Okay, it looks like we have two cormorants on the rocks ahead of us. So that'll be cool when we get there. Are dogs allowed on the trails if they're on leash? So the first thing is the leash. All dogs on state land have to be leashed. And there actually is a length of the leash that is legal. I think it can't be longer than a 6-foot leash. They are allowed on all the trails here at Hammonasset unless you have to get to the trail by going on our swimming beach. So during the camping season, which began today, you're not allowed to have dogs on the swimming beach. All right, so first thing we should talk about is the end of the trail. Okay, you can see these signs here. I really encourage people to follow these signs and do not cross this line. People do it all the time. And further out there is where we get our piping plovers, a very, very endangered bird. They are very hard to find. They're very small. People walk on their nests. They chase the adult birds away. We've actually found occasion where a footprint was right over and crushed the eggs. So we really don't want people to go out in the area beyond this sign. Now over here, we've got out on our rocks, there are cormorants. The blackbirds are cormorants. Looks like some gulls are out there sitting with them. The cormorant is a diving duck, and I will do an entire program on cormorants at some point. Probably when we're out in a canoe. That'll be a good time to do a cormorant program. But you can see the moraine continues out. They're sitting on rocks that are part of the moraine. And that moraine continues across over into Clinton. And then it continues all the way up. Eventually it crosses 95 and goes to Ledger. That deer fly just flew right in my mouth. It goes all the way to Ledger. So that's pretty cool. I think that, so the DEP acquired some land in Ledger. Gunjiwamp was acquired recently. I might go there and do a program. And while I'm over there, I'll see if I can find where this moraine ends. It would be cool to walk the far end of the moraine and show you guys what that's like. Ruth is asking me to zoom in on the birds, which I will do, but I'm going to find a nice rock that I can set my camera on because my hand is too shaky to zoom in from here. So there's a nice big rock. We'll set it down here. And we're going to zoom in first on, let's get the angle right here. Here we go. So that's a cormorant on that large rock right there. Just sunning itself. You can see it's preening. There's a good word for today, preening. Look for that in our vocabulary words coming up. Preening means it's cleaning and aligning its feathers. So if the feathers get ruffled and out of line, they run their beak along and get the feathers. They will all fit together like a puzzle. So they run their beak along to fit them together. And then if we pan to the side here, we're going to zoom in on these. Oops, a little too much. Oh, it won't stop where I want it to. Guess I should hire a cameraman. All right, let's zoom in. See if we can, that's as much as I can zoom in, but there we go. So it looks like a few herring gulls out there with the cormorants. There's a cormorant splashing in the water. To the left. Looks like it, now I can't see, it went behind the rock. They will go under, they can stay under for a while. Usually they're only under, a minute or so, but they could stay under, and they can move a long distance for that minute or so that they're underwater. All right, let's pan over here because I see something else. Let me see if I can get this in the picture for you. Looks like it could be another duck. So the cormorants are considered diving ducks. And then we have dabbling ducks. And I did a program on mallards. going here? And there we go. There's another gull on the bank, and it looks like it could be a cormorant or it could be one of the dabbling ducks. All right, we have a question. The marshes to the left are off limits, but can I go on the rocks? So I'm in the rocky area. As long as you're not, again, past that sign, you can stay on the rocks. But we don't want to disturb the animals. You can see people have worn a trail right past there. Kind of unfortunate. All right, I'm gonna zoom back out. Do we see any other questions here? I don't see any additional questions. But I want to show you one last thing before we end for today. It's kind of cool. All right, we're going to use this sign to rest the camera on, and you can look back at the nature center. How cool is that? So this is Hammonasset Salt Marsh. This is one of the things that make Hammonasset one of the jewels in the state park system. Of all of the state parks that I have visited, and I haven't visited them all yet, but I would say every state park has a claim to being the crown jewel of the park system. So I don't like to say the crown jewel, like the best of the jewels, but they are all jewels, and it is just absolutely amazing that we have the environments that we have here in Connecticut, and so much of it is preserved and protected. Many, many states do not have the amount of land that we have set aside, and that land will be there forever. That's the great thing. Well, hopefully forever. The legislature could, if they passed some rules and laws changes, they could take that land and direct it other places. But for now, all of this public space is available to everyone. Everyone within the state of Connecticut is only 15 minutes from state land that they can go to and visit and hike. Now, you can't hike in our salt marsh. It's actually part of a wildlife preserve, wildlife management area. So that has different rules than the park itself, but you can walk all around our salt marshes and learn and see so much. And that new building is absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait till we can get some people back in there. So hopefully soon I'll be able to start visiting with all of you. All right, if we don't have any other questions. Someone says, this walk made my day. Thanks. It made my day too, because I got to see a mink chasing a rabbit. That was really cool. So we're going to keep these programs going. Again, Friday is the 4th of July, so it's a state holiday. I will try and do a program. I'll do it from somewhere else. I'm going to pan over and show you some cloud formations there, though, because those are pretty cool. Let me zoom back so you can see. Look at that cloud right there. How cool is that? Other than the 4th, though, these programs will happen Tuesday through Friday at 11 o'clock. If we are not able to open or see groups, I'll probably start up again, let's see, when schools start, the end of August. So only about 2 months from now, I will start doing these programs twice a day again. And Ruth is saying loons. I'm not sure if you saw loons out there. We typically don't see loons in the summertime. We do see loons a lot in the winter. We see the common loon and the red-throated loon in the winter almost every day. If you walk this trail, you will probably see a loon in the wintertime. Really cool. If it's really bad weather, you probably won't see them, but most people don't want to be out there in bad weather. And there's a pair of willets. They're going to pass right in front of the camera. Zoom, there they go. Oh, and a third one just jumped in. Now there's a fourth one. I'm going to pan over, see if we can get a willet duel going on over here. They're chasing each other all around. The willets are very territorial. I have had to go out into the marsh for work. And when you're walking past a willet nest, they will fly over your head, hover there, and just squawk like it's the end of the world. It's really fun to see them. I don't like to see them do that because that means I'm distressing them, but it's a pretty neat thing. All right, it looks like they've got some wild asparagus going over here. How cool is that? Just out here in the marsh, growing up. And this is marshy here. This is surprising. I don't think I've ever seen it in the marsh. If anybody thinks this is not asparagus, if they think it's something else, please let me know. All right, again, this is Ranger Russ, another program from Hammonasset Beach State Park. Tomorrow I'm going to try and visit another park, so tune in at 11. We'll be at another park somewhere in the state learning something new. And I always like to see new things, so let's hope for great weather tomorrow. We'll see some new things. Until then, this is Ranger Russ signing off from the Meigs Point Nature Center.